Look outside and what do you see? Rampant crime, senseless violence, prolific degeneracy. A cruel world full of creatures worse than monsters. The beaten and bruised will cry out for answers, but they will hear no voice of comfort. For we are free to act as—
Is that milk you're drinking?
I'm allergic to alcohol. It makes me vomit.
It's against my religion to drink.
Today I thought I'd share what I consider to be required viewing material for any fan of these Chinese cartoons. Black Lagoon remains the uncontested champion of gang-related anime. High praise, but let's make it even higher. The English dub gives even Cowboy Bebop a run for its money. Animation-wise, I mean, it's Studio Madhouse. Yeah, you get the idea. It looks nice. But what about the story? Biblical. Alright, not really, but it's still really good. Rock is a humble Japanese salaryman who gives it his all for a job that makes him feel empty. But when a company trip goes wrong, he gets a taste of a much different kind of life. Guns pointed right in his face, crazy killers all around him, and a city caked in a stench of death. On top of that, the company he works for couldn't care less about what's happening to him. They send in a mercenary team to secure an incriminating disc and kill anyone who gets in their way. Amidst all the carnage, Rock comes to a realization. He's tired of being treated like a pawn. His company doesn't care about him. In fact, no one really cares about him. He's just another Joe Schmo, a background character for someone else's story, but no more. His job completely emasculated him. So he grabs life by the balls and then claims them for himself. Oh, they got a helicopter? And all we got's a torpedo boat? Through God, all things are possible. And when the dust finally settles, Rock refuses to go back to his normal life in Japan. Luckily for him, the Black Lagoon company is hiring.
Guns up. Let's do this.
If there's one thing this anime excels at, well, it's probably the over-the-top action. But it's also the characters. A truly international and diverse gallery of rogues here. We got the Nubian king, Dutch, quite possibly the coolest black dude in all of anime. Cool gun, cool drip, cool voice. Gonna have to dock a couple points for his taste in literature.
Communism is a lie.
But I'll throw a few more back on for this line.
It pays to be a religious man after all.
As a certified black person expert, I have to say the show did him good. Before you start typing away in the comments, yes, I am a certified black person expert. I watched the Boondocks.
I am the stone that the builder refused.
Moving on, there's the Chinese-American sweetheart Revy, who shouts at least one F-bomb every episode, and we love her for it.
Go f*** yourself.
We even got Benny, one of God's chosen and the group's computer hacker guy. A dude in a Hawaiian shirt is the mark of a great show. And Mr. Japanese ain't too bad himself. He's sort of the fish out of water, but you can tell early on that this dude isn't so different from the, legally challenged cast. His English VA is the same one as Light Yagami, so do with that information what you will. I think it's really interesting how Rock quickly adapted to his new life of crime. Maybe the man was always a little crazy and having one really bad day finally caused him to snap. Or maybe the corporate world isn't all that different from the criminal. I lean more to the latter interpretation since Rock's business experience often comes in handy. Would that make Black Lagoon a critique on corporate culture? A sort of unmasking of the supposedly kind and respectful etiquette so passively aggressively forced onto the lowly working man? Or maybe it's just a power fantasy for wage cucks. Food for thought. But we haven't even gotten to this amazing supporting cast. The colorful city of Roanapur features an even more colorful cast, all of whom make ample use of the most colorful of language. Standouts for me are Shenhua, Etta, and of course, Bella Laika. There are no shortage of badass babes here. Just remember, confession starts at 3 o'clock. Amazing characters leads to amazing dialogue. Vulgar, sure, but I wouldn't have it any other way for a show like this. Gangsters should talk like gangsters. That's why I keep shilling the English dub. Let me also state for the record though, in case you're worried, the comedy is more than just, "Ooh, they said another no-no word."
Wait a minute, we should stop this, right? We can't let this go on.
Why not?
One last thing on the characters. I love how the show keeps you guessing on their relationships. No, I'm not talking about romance. There's a careful balance that exists between all the major factions in Roanapur. The Black Lagoon Company is purely independent, which basically means anyone might start shooting at them. Yesterday's ally might become today's enemy, but then it might also be tomorrow's ally again. You never really know. It keeps all the interactions fresh and interesting since they all have either shot at or will shoot at each other, depending on the job. It brings to mind my favorite aspect of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, with how the main three constantly shift sides and whatnot. And it's not like any of these guys are actually good people anyway. I mean, even Rock is kind of a psychopath, especially towards the end. And on the topic of Rock, let's talk about his relationship with Revy. If you're worried about spoilers, don't be. I'm not going to go super in depth. The relationship between these two perfectly sums up the feel of the show. You never know for sure if Revy is going to kiss Rock or kill him. Revy is a far more cynical and violent person, but once you learn more about her, you kind of get where she's coming from. Rock also has his own interesting perspective on things, and it often gets tested or challenged by Revy and the others. And that brings me to another thing that I really love about this show. Each character has their own views, but none of them have all the answers. You don't have to agree with everything these characters say. In fact, sometimes you really shouldn't. What matters, though, is that each character feels like an actual character instead of just a mouthpiece for certain views. Obviously, not every character is overly complex. There are a multitude of cartoonishly over-the-top villains, but even the simpler ones serve to make the more interesting players that much more interesting. The result is countless memorable character moments and growth that feels organic and satisfying. All of the main players have set goals and act the way you'd expect someone who lives in this hellhole to act. Dutch mainly only cares about getting paid. Revy just wants to shoot something. Mr. Chang is trying to keep Roanapur under his control, and Bellalaika is trying to take the city for herself. They all might joke around with one another, but the second one of them gets in the way of the other, bullets start flying without a second thought, which never feels out of place because, again, they're not good people. Besides human characters, there's also the city of Roanapur itself. The decorative noose hanging just outside the city and the ruined Buddha statue out by the harbor should give you an idea of what to expect. A place with a firm grip on vice itself. Illegal weapons flood the streets and crooked cops patrol them. At any given moment, you could be robbed, beaten, or even killed just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Basically Anime Detroit. And the inhabitants are something else.
Christ, wait a minute, don't shoot! It's me, Leroy!
You got the Hong Kong Triad, the Colombian Cartel, Ruskies, Italians, the Catholic Church, Floridians, neo-Nazis, the protectors of the Islamic Front, an assortment of mentally ill bounty hunters, 2 different gunslinging maids, and a pair of sadistic, incestuous Romanian twins with a vampire fetish. No, you heard me right. Floridians. How did they air this? Black Lagoon is not for the faint of heart. You might call it edgy with all the killing and dreary philosophy, but that's only half the show. When they aren't shooting at each other, everyone's just kind of hanging around and having a good time. I would hardly describe the show as doom and gloom. It's a schizophrenic, high-octane rush of sex, drugs, and violence, and quality writing. One second, you're watching a maid wreak havoc on an entire city, and the next, boom, you're overcome with pity, disgust, or maybe hope. It just depends on the scene. Does this combination of extremes work for everyone? I don't know, but it works for me. Now, this video wouldn't be complete without mentioning Black Lagoon's biggest problem. It never properly finished. We got 24 episodes of greatness and an amazing 5-part OVA years later, but all that came to a close in 2011. The main reason for no season 3? There's just not enough source material to adapt. There's currently 12 volumes of Black Lagoon, with the first 2 seasons in the OVA covering up to volume 10. The author has been known to take long hiatuses in between volumes, much like another guy whose work Madhouse has adapted. But if Hunter x Hunter can make a comeback after all these years, maybe Black Lagoon can too, right? Realistically, that probably is not gonna happen. For all its merit, Black Lagoon isn't nearly as popular as Hunter x Hunter, and it's been gone for far longer. But even if it never returns, I'm satisfied with what we got. But what do you guys think? Will we ever get another season? Do you even want another season? I'm not exactly confident that a modern English dub will go as hard as what came before. Pre-2014 dubs were wild, man. I guess that about wraps things up. Let me know what other stuff you guys might want me to cover, and if it's not trash, I'll do it. So until next time, Ave Maria, Deus Vult, and stop simping for serial killers.